Representative Linda Black to come up, and she has, I know, been a vocal opponent of this. She's the representative here in the Farmington area, and we will give Linda a few minutes to share with us on what's in her heart. And thanks so much, Linda.
I got to lower this, I'm not quite that tall. One, I appreciate the invitation to come and update you on the process that we have been dealing with in Jefferson City. And I do want you to know that oftentimes you may disagree with your elected officials on all decisions or some decisions, but do know I work in good company with Senator Gary Romine, Presiding Commissioner Jim Skaggs. We really have the best interest of our districts and our community at heart. And oftentimes we have to navigate prior statutes and law, not only at the state level, but the federal level, to be able to deal with these situations, such as this last one with the ASARCO settlement that we've been working very diligently from county to state and with our federal elected congressmen to try to do what is right, in our opinion, on behalf of our communities. And we do have to understand what we believe is right on behalf of our communities is not exactly what all people feel is right statewide. The land purchase in Oregon, in my opinion, is something that is not good for my community. I have a lot of lead mine tailings in my community. I have a lot of restoration and remediation and habitat restoration that needs to be taking place in my community and in my district. And so for those people who have elected me, I feel that it's my due diligence to make sure that I'm fighting very hard to make sure those monies stay locally in my community to do rehabilitative type services. But to go back through the process that we have been working with, whenever the ASARCO settlement was finalized in federal court, the judge laid out where monies could be spent, which is very narrowly focused to those mine-tailing areas that we all share in here, southeast Missouri. But also there was a reference to a CERCLA, which is a restoration, remediation, implementation plan by the federal government through EPA. And CERCLA is the door in to diverting those funds to other areas. If it was just the judge's statement of where the money should be spent, that's pretty cut and dry because it has each of the impact zones listed. But then referencing the CERCLA, which says that in addition to these restoration areas, that CERCLA also can be adhered to. It's kind of a guideline to go by, in that it opens the door for compensatory land purchases. And that's how the Oregon piece of land, the tract of land along the 11 point, was able to be purchased. Now we have come through, I know I have every line of that settlement agreement. I've read CERCLA, and we've had an interim committee appointed by the Speaker, Todd Richardson, from down in Poplar Bluff. We had an interim committee of House members to investigate this one issue. And luckily, we do have some attorneys on that committee as well. And after sorting through, listening to testimony, what we have come up with as far as, is it legal? It is legal, but it is not right, and there's a difference. So we have to navigate from this point forward and look at ways that we can attract this money to our local communities. Although there's been several $1 million spent on land purchases in Oregon County, or at least they're pending, there are restoration and remediation monies left in this ASARCO settlement for our local communities, and here's what you can do. I know that if you have any relation with your local municipalities, your mayors, your state representatives, senators, congressmen, presiding commissioners in your counties, in your communities, if you have ideas where this money can be spent, and it's very narrowly focused, wetland remediation, habitat restoration, this all deals with environmental damages. not our yards, not those types of things, but the way that the environment was impacted. And so we're looking for projects so that we can vie for that money. They don't have to be engineered, and no consultants have to be hired at this point in time, because we have some, through the program, we have that ability to have these potential projects looked at. And so we just need ideas as elected officials. We need to know, if you know of an area that needs restored, an area that needs remediation, if you know of a habitat that's been impacted by prior mining practices, we need to be able to send those ideas to the trustees. The trustees are, in the SARCO, are U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. And that is the problem why Senator Romine and my hands are tied as far as, if it was a state appropriation, we could stop that immediately. We would have the majority of our legislative bodies agreeing with us on this. But the problem is, it was a federal court decision, and it's held in a federal trust. So we can't just go in and blow it all up and stop it, or believe me, we would have a long time ago, but that's not, we can't do that within the jurisdiction of our offices. So we need projects for you all to bring forward, giving them to your commissioners, mayors, public elected officials, so that we can try to get that money to our local area. There's a project in Leadwood called Bone Hole. There is one that's being looked at in Park Hills along the Flat River Creek, where it has gone out of its banks on many occasions, and there's some riverbank restoration that needs to take place. So just know, just like you have an interest in what takes place in government. Those of us that are elected, sometimes we're just looked at as the politically elected, and what are you doing in Jefferson City or Washington, D.C., but know that before I was a state representative, I was a cattle farmer, a teacher, a mother, a daughter, a sister, and I had a passion just like you do, to do more things for my community and to do more things as an individual, as a citizen. And I just put my name on the ballot, as any of you can here today, and try to make things different. And oftentimes, we have to stay confined to the laws that we have. And with this SARCO settlement, we are finding that we're dealing with an uphill battle, because to this point, from all of the research, testimony, input that we've gotten, it is being followed to the letter of the law. I have contacted an environmental law firm in St. Louis who has dealt with environmental issues in the past. I've solicited their help in this to see if citizens have a class action potential here, that if the citizens of my county have been wronged, that's what we're looking at right now, so that we can maybe, and this is a long stretch, find some kind of an avenue in to try to stop the land purchase and then divert that money back to those impact zones. So that's a work in progress. I don't want to get your hopes up that that's going to happen, but know that I didn't just stop with the committee report, and I didn't just stop with learning and hearing that, we're pretty much, well, this is the way it is. I kept continuing and continuing on my own to find avenues to try to right this wrong by consulting with an environmental law firm who has dealt with these settlements before. And look, right now it's looking pretty good that we may have an action on behalf of at least St. Clair remediated through restoration monies and Superfund monies, federal chat pile in Park Hills, national has, Bonterre has. And one thing that you have to understand, what I said to DNR and U.S. Fish and Wildlife is, we want, from an airplane view, when you look down on our area, you don't see that scarring of the land that took place from past mining practices. That was the intention of the judge during the settlement, is to restore those. But do understand, there are many, many citizens who grew up in those communities, who grew up climbing those chat piles, that did not want them disturbed. And so those Superfund sites have been, a lot of them have been finalized, a lot of them have just a few more phases to go and then they're done. So a lot of those chat piles in St. Francis County are the way they're gonna look because the citizens said we don't want them totally eliminated down to the ground, down to the original topography. And so they were left, some of them with just the caps taken off and then capped with rocks because citizens wanted them to. But yes, this is the same, some of those are listed in the settlement, but they've already been restored through prior funding.
Representative Black.
Yes.
Have you considered denying the Department of Natural Resources as well as the Missouri Department of Conservation from the ability to even purchase any land in the future without approval by the Missouri General Assembly?
Yes, those are components that are part of bills that have been introduced this year to try to stop them from land purchases. This one wouldn't have done any good anyway because it is a federal judgment. It's under federal jurisdiction with trustees. It's not just completely at the discretion of those two state departments that you've mentioned, Conservation and Natural Resources. But we have legislation that has been heard in committee that would limit the ability of those departments to purchase land. This is a very unique situation, and will it ever happen again? Who knows?
Are you familiar with the Department of Natural Resources, Our Missouri Waters, and the watershed approach to land management in the state of Missouri?
Well, I'm familiar with the Big River watershed. Are you talking about the private groups of citizens who've come together over the last 7 or 8 years to talk about the ASARCO settlement?
Now, the Department of Natural Resources is using an entire watershed approach that I'll get into a little bit later to manage all the
Are you a
land.
speaker today?
Yes.
Oh, well then, share that when you're up here.
I wanted to know if you knew, if you're leaving and I'll
Yeah,
contact you later.
actually, we know that part of the ASARCO settlement, why the monies could be spent in Oregon is because there was a prior study years ago by the University of Missouri that established that part of Missouri into a common ecological zone as Southeast Missouri. We're also, that's part of the, what I've asked the environmental attorneys to look at. Was that study that put Oregon County in with us even valid and accurate? Because we don't share any watersheds with that particular region. And so that's the avenues that we're looking at, is the validity of that environmental study that put us in the same zone. Yes, back there?
How do the land purchases benefit the remediation work?
The land purchases don't benefit the remediation part at all. What they do is they devise part of that circular that says you have to have compensatory or compensating land for these lands have been damaged. There's not a whole lot we can do to them, but what they're saying is we can compensate by buying a similar type of property, whether it be thousands of acres, somewhere else, and set that aside for future generations so that we have a similar ecological area protected. But we don't want that in St. Francis County. We want our remediation to take place. Any other questions? Well, I appreciate it. I hate that I have to look down, but boy, these lights are bright now. I know what it's like to be a singer up on stage. But I won't oblige you with that, and I'm going to take off. I appreciate you letting me be here today. And if you do have additional questions, feel free to send those to my office. I'd be more than happy to respond to you and let you know what's taking place with the legislative process. Oh, and one question, the bill that passed in the House did pass with bipartisan support. It's been heard in Senate committee. It's Robert Ross's bill. It has not passed the Senate committee at this time. It has to pass the committee and then on to the Senate floor.